Welcome to the Got Any Cows podcast. If you want to learn all you can about the beef cattle industry, this is the podcast for you. My name is Seth Christensen. My company has sent beef cattle genetics to 45 of the 50 states and 12 countries around the world. I've had the chance to learn from some of the best and brightest in the beef cattle industry, and I invite you to join me for those conversations here on the Got Any Cows podcast. Well, I'm lucky to be here with you today, Jordan. I really appreciate you fitting me in. This is a busy time to be here at the Akaushi convention. Excited to be here with you and record an episode of the Got Any Cows podcast. Looking forward to chatting a little bit about the Akaushi breed and about you and your career. So if you would, Jordan, just kind of introduce yourself for us a little bit. Give us a little bit of your background, who you are, and who I'm chatting with here.
Yeah, for sure. First off, thanks for having us. Super excited to be here at the Akaushi convention. So many excited Akaushi enthusiasts from around the country here. It's just been a great event. I'm Jordan Beeman. I'm the president of Heartbrand, so oversee all day-to-day operations, both live cattle operations, feedlot operations, and all the way through meat operations and getting this great beef to the final consumer. I really got my start through a meat plant. I mean, literally my first stop on the way home from the hospital was a meat plant. So yeah, literally the
That's
first.
awesome.
Yeah, literally the first stop. So been in a meat plant my entire life, mostly further processed meat operations. My dad's had some kind of carcass kill facilities as well. So started off in the meat business and then fifth generation cattle rancher as well. So family's been raising cattle kind of in that same Flatonia area where our headquarters is today for 5 generations.
Love it. Love it. That's fantastic. So how did you first get involved with Heartbrand, I guess, and even prior to that a little bit? Walk us through a little bit of maybe your education and then how your role in Heartbrand developed.
Yeah. So first got involved with Heartbrand is when my dad worked as a service provider from him starting in 1998. Okay. So when he had his meat plant, just worked as our family, him. I wasn't quite full-time yet, but still got to see those first cattle from 98 till 2006 when we purchased the assets. So 2006 purchased the assets, and then kind of 2009 is when Heartbrand took off the way it is today, and then I joined the company somewhere like 2010, 2011 full-time.
Love it. Love it. Fantastic. So to give people, I'm sure a question you answer all the time, just like I do, is what is Akaushi? I think it's probably the most common question I get. To put it in your words, what is Akaushi?
It's a great question. So what I tell people is Akaushi is a specific breed of cattle from Japan. And all Akaushi are Wagyu, but not all Wagyu are Akaushi. So Akaushi are the red cattle in color, and what gives them their biggest uniqueness compared to what a Wagyu is people see them for their growth traits, their performance traits. They look much more like a traditional beef animal that an American rancher would like to see.
You bet. Absolutely. And I think you nailed it right there, Jordan. And obviously, you know better than anybody. You're overseeing the largest Akaushi operation in the United States, if not in the world. And do you know, I know it's the largest in the U.S. Do you know where it would rank globally?
We sure think it's the largest in the world.
As far as I'm aware.
So what we say is it's the largest in the U.S. and the largest that we know of.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything to tell you that there's a bigger one anywhere else. So you would know better than anyone, but I think you hit the nail on the head there, that the cattle are good and the beef is good. And that's what brought me into the breed. You know, for me, coming from an Angus background, just like you said, I'm used to a specific type of cattle. And even though all of us would love to have a fantastic steak on the plate, and I love a Wagyu steak, that's fantastic, but I really don't want to deal with the Wagyu cattle. And so that's what really makes the Akaushi unique for me, as is the day I first saw him. I remember rolling in, I'd been hired to do some consulting for a day for a hay farmer to come and source some cattle. And he says, hey, I need you to sort through these Akaushi. And I'd, Akawada, and I went and looked at them, and I rolled in expecting to see kind of a sorry, Coriani Jersey cross looking thing, to sort through, thinking a little more of the black Wagyu stuff. And he said, no, I rolled in and saw a really nice pen of feeders. He said, so where are your Japanese cattle? He said, oh, no, these are them. And they were really impressive. So Paul Marchant there in Oakley, Idaho, had some Akaushi cross cattle. And that was what stood out to me, is exactly what you just said there, that not only are they great carcasses and fantastic from a meat standpoint, but they're fantastic cattle. And I think that just absolutely sets the breed apart. So give us a little bit of the background, if you would, Jordan, even prior to the time that the Beeman family acquired Heartbrand and its assets. How did the breed kind of come to be? A little bit of that history between when they were imported and then when the Beeman family took ownership of Heartbrand in 06.
Yeah, for sure. So as the history's been told to us, we first got acquainted in 1998, but the cattle came over in 1994 on a special opportunity. They flew them over from Japan, cleared customs in Long Island, New York, made their way to Wisconsin, then finally to the ranch where we still operate today. And a really small group of cattle, somewhere give or take 15 cattle, came over in 1994. And to our knowledge, that group that came over in 94, the two bulls that came over in 1976, Rushaw and Judo, are the only cattle, the only Akaushi that have ever left Japan. So we're very fortunate to have really the only breeding nucleus that's ever left Japan, and to have the opportunity to work with those and still have semen on all the original foundation bulls that have ever left Japan. So cattle came over 1994. A group of Texas businessmen operated the company from then until like 2006. We worked as a service provider starting in 1998. Okay. My dad had a carcass kill facility, so we killed some of the first full-blood Akaushi outside of Japan. Yeah. And my dad just really got to see the meat quality of these cattle. Right. And then, like you were talking about, he got to see the half-blood steers that had performance. So I really think Akaushi creates the best beef with giving up the least performance traits. Yep. So when I tell people, if you want to create really good beef, but yet you still care about growth, you still care about feed efficiency, you still care about days to terminal weight, Akaushi does that better than anything else. Yep. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Akaushi does that better than anything else.
Yes. Yep.
So we worked from a service provider until 2006, and then purchased the assets then. And my dad's hope was to be able to get Akaushi beef to more people. Just get them to have that beef eating experience that he was able to try virtually before any other American, right? I mean, there was a few people that tried it, but I mean, like
one of the very first.
Yeah, he's at the tip of the spear, right? So, and that's what we've done. We've been trying to get more Akaushi cattle out to more producers in hopes of our goal of getting the Akaushi Association to be a top 5 beef breed in the United States, and that's why we're all gathered here today, to just see this breed continue to grow, and Heartbrand's a big push behind that. But now what Heartbrand's really excited to do is get more Akaushi cattle to more people. And we think a rising tide's going to raise all boats. And we just know these cattle perform. We know they grade. We know they perform well in the feedlot. And like you said, we don't have to be the absolute best looking cattle. We just got to fit in average. If we can be an average look, and that's what JoJo and the team have done such a good job, is creating functional cattle. That have good feet and legs, that have sound body types, but still have growth and performance, and then not give up any of those carcass traits that the Akaushi are known for.
Absolutely. So walk us through today, now that you're at this point in time, that you're president of Heartbrand Beef and you're running the company. Walk us through what day-to-day operations look like. What is the business centered around? Well, I guess the meat side of the business specifically, and the beef. And I think it's such a huge service that you've provided for the breed, in the sense that you guys have functionally built that marketplace. When people ask me, what does Akaushi beef look like, I'm typing in heartbrandbeef.com, and I say, it's like this. This is the flagship program in the U.S. And walk us through kind of what that meat program looks like, how you develop that, what operations look like today. Give us a feel for that program.
Yeah. So what guides us in everything we do is we want to provide the best beef eating experience possible.
Absolutely.
That guides the cattle industry, our cattle business. That guides our beef business. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide the best beef eating experience possible. Now, that doesn't mean we're trying to chase the Japanese dream and create BMS 10s and BMS 12s. We're trying to create a 14-ounce steak that the American consumer will enjoy and want to buy again. That's what guides us in everything we do, and as well where they can have the best hamburger that they've ever had in their life. So literally everything we do revolves around that. So, my days are random, right? Like I tell people it's roughly a third traveling, a third at the ranch, and a third at the office. And it can comes in waves, right? You might think you know what your day's going to be, but then there's some fence broken and cattle out, and then you just, whatever you thought was on your schedule for that day, doesn't matter. You got to find the cows and get that taken care of, or the feed truck's broken. And we got to get the feed truck going. But I have such a great team and such a great staff of people. We've got about 38 full-time individuals that are part of the team every day that help keep us moving. But, my greatest passion in life and the best thing I can do is sell beef. I just try and be in front of customers, have relationship with customers. And I tell people, there's a lot of great reasons to buy Heartbrand Beef, but the best reason is because you get to buy it from Heartbrand. You get to do business with us because we want to do business here. This is what we want to be doing, is providing this great beef. So I try and get to as many customers, have customer events. Whenever somebody comes out to the ranch, I try and do my best to go out there for lunch and join them. So just try and really be forward facing and be out with the people as much as I can.
You bet. You bet. So as you look at selling all the beef that you guys do, because it's a tremendous volume of beef you're moving at this point in time, walk us through that growth from when you first acquired the assets in '06 and talking to JoJo, maybe killing 10 a week or whatever, to, if I'm not mistaken, 400 a week at this point in time. Just a tremendous amount of growth there. Walk us through how you're getting that product moved and merchandised and sold. I think, again, just an example to learn from, really, for a lot of people in building out on that strength of the breed. It makes a great carcass. How do you keep that amount of product moved?
Yeah, no, that's very difficult. And it's one of the hardest things we do is sell our full product mix, right? So
absolutely.
We're just very fortunate that my dad had been in the meat business his entire adult life. My mom been in the business, her meat business, her entire life. So we had some really good contacts.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where it started, right? Like we had really good food service distributor contacts. My dad's had really good retail contacts, and then we had a meat plant to back us.
Yeah.
So that if we didn't have those, if we were just ranchers trying to get in to sell beef, I don't know if we'd have been able to make it. But we're meat people first.
Right.
And then we got the cattle that we knew could produce the product. But what we did is, literally just started with 10 head, worked our way up to now 400 head, and then just try and get one customer, take good care of that customer, and go find another one.
Yeah.
But the toughest thing we have to do, there's a couple of really difficult things we have to manage.
Yeah.
Number one is cash flow.
Yeah, sure.
Because,
absolutely.
Our best case scenario is we buy an animal at roughly 650 pounds.
Sure.
We feed that animal for roughly a year,
Yeah.
and then we finally get a chance to turn it into money.
Yep.
So in today's world, that's even a little bit more tougher with these high feeder prices.
Right.
But just even at normal feeder prices, it's still pretty tough because the cash flow tie-up is pretty long term.
Right.
The next difficult thing we do is we start with one input, and we have roughly 40 outputs. So you start with one fat steer, and then you have roughly 40 different cuts you have to go sell.
It's a job.
It's tough, yeah. Luckily, we've got 5 really good full-time salespeople led by Brad Jenkins, who's led our sales for 20 or so years. And then we just try and find customers to buy every cut of meat.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work that well every week. We're always long on something, and we're always short on something every week. So we do our best to go find homes, restaurants or retailers who want specific cuts. And the other thing we got to remember is about 40 to 42% of the animal is ground beef. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if it's Akaushi, Angus, or the lesser quality cuts of cattle. They're 42% of ground beef. So everything we always have to do has got to be centered around selling ground beef.
You bet.
The ribeyes and the strips and the tenderloins, those we can usually sell pretty well.
Right.
But just getting somebody to continue to 52 weeks out of the year buy ground beef.
Right. That makes sense. And, I think it's such a unique selling point, the quality of the beef. I remember sitting down and eating Akaushi beef with you at the ranch the first time I visited Heartbrand. And it was, I had Davis with me that was there working. And for him, I remember chatting with him even years later. And we're talking about kind of our transition within my business as we've gone from being only 10% Akaushi within our program to 90 within our embryo transfer program. And I asked him, I said, so what were your thoughts? Even back when we visited Heartbrand, we tasted that beef, saw those cattle. He's like, it was game over on Angus for me then at that point in time. It was a significant change. And we still produce Angus and still love the Angus cattle, but it is such a distinctly different beef. It used to be, prior to me ever eating Akaushi beef, any given beef would do. It was fine. I wasn't picky. Once you go Akaushi, there's no going back. And it's Akaushi or Akaushi now. There's nothing else left in the freezer for me, for my family, and for us to eat. But you talked about putting that great steak on the plate and that great finished product and selling the best beef in the world and doing that. How you go about, I guess, the product between having the Akaushi, which have the correct genetic package, but then the actual steak on the plate, there's a huge, like you mentioned, a feeding process in there, a kill process in there, a sales process in there to make that whole thing hum. What does your feeding process look like to make sure we are putting that great steak on the plate? What does it take to turn a 650-pound Akaushi weanling into an appropriately finished steak? And then any recommendations on both, I guess, the feeding process, the kill process, sales and distribution, all those pieces that I think sometimes get lost for people like me that maybe know the cattle, or are comfortable with the cattle, familiar with the cattle, but we're talking about selling beef here. And I think there's that disconnect, or there has been for me. I'm trying to further educate myself, the disconnect between those 2 points. Walk us through that process from the live animal to the steak on the plate to having it turn out just so that you guys can sell the volume that you do.
For sure, yeah. So start out with a 650-pound feeder. Then you got to feed them a high-energy ration. And for us in Texas, that traditionally means steam flake corn.
You bet.
But other people have other different opportunities to high energy, but
Sure.
high energy ration. Feed them that high energy ration until they weigh 1,500 pounds.
Yep.
And if you're concerned, feed them for another month.
Yep. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
because there's no substitute for high energy ration in days on feed.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though we have a marbling breed, they still need a high energy ration.
Right.
We do have some people who feed them grass fed,
Sure.
and they compete very well compared to traditional grass fed.
Right,
But
right.
every picture you see on our website at heartbrandbeef.com has a high energy ration.
You bet.
And we think to have that best beef eating experience possible, they got to have a high energy ration.
Yeah.
And we feel the American consumer is used to an animal that's finished on a high energy ration, specifically corn,
Right.
because it gives that great, rich, deep, almost a little bit sweet
Yes.
beef eating flavor. Because there's other countries that create highly marbled beef.
Yeah.
They just don't create flavorful beef like we create here.
Right.
And to me, that's such a difference. And I've been in so many cuttings with Heartbrand beef and imported Wagyu from another country that still looks good, that might look as good as ours, that has that good marbling, and some of it might even look better.
Yeah.
But when you try a domestically raised Akaushi Heartbrand steak compared to an imported one that doesn't have high energy corn-fed ration, they just lack flavor. They lack pop. They lack that corn-fed flavor. So it starts with that high energy ration, almost a year, 300 days, 365 days.
Sure.
Some cattle gain better than the others. The half bloods are going to gain a little quicker than the full bloods.
Sure.
And whatever your goals are, go differently from there. But
Yeah.
high energy ration. And then the next thing you got to do is you got to find a really good packer.
Yeah.
Somebody that will take really good care of your animals, as much care as you have, which is really hard to find. And we're extremely fortunate to use Cavness Beef Packers in Hereford, Texas. Worked with them for about 15 years, a great Texas family that believes in great beef just like we do. And they're bigger than what most people can go to. So the next thing you got to find is a local processor or a local locker plant in your area. And then to try and find one that understands the quality of cattle that you're bringing them can be pretty tough. And then that's where we see the differences from what we do to what the local people are able to do. And I tell them, just because you have our steer, say we sell you a Heartbrand finished steer that will be ready to go, it's tough to get the same beef eating experience that we're able to produce, because we slaughter them and we only let them hang for less than 7 days, maybe 5 days. Yeah.
Interesting.
And
So short hang time hasn't negatively impacted anything. Do you prefer the short hang time?
We prefer it. We prefer it. I'm not a dry aged fan.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
So
Fair enough.
just let me
Absolutely.
start by telling you that.
Yeah,
There
you
are
bet,
people
you
who
bet.
are dry aged
Yeah,
fans.
there's people that like
might
to do it that way.
think
You've had
differently,
better
but-
luck with the short one.
Yeah, we have-
Interesting.
Because you have less yield loss.
Yeah, sure.
And most American consumers are used to wet age.
Yeah.
There's very few American consumers who are used to dry age. And we think the short hang time's better on your ground beef, for sure. Like we don't feel like ground beef needs to be hung for 14 days. We think the shorter turn time on ground beef is better, and get that ground beef as quickly as you can to the customer, or frozen as quickly as possible. We think that gives you the best opportunity for ground beef. However, we do age our subprimals. So like our ribeye strips, we'll age those for 45 days.
Oh, really?
So yeah, we
Wow.
we age those wet in the bag for 45 days at a cold temperature, 32, 34 something degrees like that. Because I don't think meat, I'm not a scientist, but meat doesn't freeze till somewhere 30, 28, something like that.
Yeah.
That's not a science answer. That's just
Sure. Just in there somewhere. I know what you mean. Yeah.
But so age those ribeyes and strips somewhere around 45 days. Top butts 45 days. Culottes or top sirloin cap 45 days. The tender doesn't have to be 45 days. 30 days, somewhere like that. There's more opinion on what a tender should be aged for. Some people think they don't like them aged. Some people do. We age ours for about 30 days.
Okay. Yeah.
And then for our mail order specifically, then we individually cut them and vacuum pack them and then freeze them right away.
Gotcha.
So to us, that's what we feel allows us to have the highest amount of beef eating experience, high-end beef eating experience, the most amount of time.
Yeah.
So we only do a small amount of direct-to-consumer for our mail order. Most of our beef is sold to food service distributors, specialty food service distributors, big box food service distributors, and then retailers.
Yeah.
And they get most of that meat within 14 days of pack date. And those people, we have a great transportation network. Cavness helps us get some of that. We do our own LTL. Most of it gets there within like less than 14. But those people then have their own decision of if they want to age it or not age it,
Gotcha.
which is unique.
Yeah.
Most retailers don't age beef. They even put up signs that say fresh beef, which we don't agree with, but we don't have the retail stores. So a lot of those retailers are putting that beef out pretty quickly, like less than 21 days. But that's just their method. But we try and get our food service guys to be 2 weeks ahead so that beef ages in their cooler and then has a little time to continue. Because there's no doubt in our mind that aging makes beef more tender.
Sure.
I mean, I think the science agrees with that. I'm not a scientist at all, but the beef I've had, there's no doubt that there's a point up to 30 days for sure. We even like 45 days, but aging makes beef more tender. Okay. Now, we don't want to age our hamburger meat. We don't want to age beef once it's out of that original vacuum pack package. Right. We want to age it in the original vacuum pack package from the beef packer. Okay. And then we age that beef and then just have such a good time getting it to a consumer. And the favorite thing that I do of my day is take Akaushi beef, take it to a restaurant and say, hey, here, try this beef. Mm-hmm. Please try it compared to your current beef. And if you don't like it better than your current beef, we'll leave. Right. And we haven't had to leave yet.
Yeah, it's an easy product to sell in that sense.
It's an easy product to sell. Yeah. Sometimes they don't want to pay the money.
Sure.
Sometimes they don't like the demand issues, and sometimes they don't like that we're out.
Sure.
But I mean, that's just what you take when you deal with a small niche beef company. And even though we're doing 400 a week, which is still one of the largest Wagyu producers in the country, we still get out of product. We still just can't cover everybody's needs. But I tell people, like, our commitment is to providing you the same product every single week, the great marbling, the great flavor. Yeah. And we do mess up. Sure. But when we mess up, we answer our phones and we try our best to take care of it. Because I tell people we're selling beef, not baking cakes.
Right.
So we're taking a live animal, trying to feed him a ration, trying to get him to a weight, and then trying to get that meat to an end user. And there's a lot of hands and a lot of people in between there, but we do really well at a very large amount of the time.
You bet. Hey, buddy, just wanted to invite you to our next auction on November 19th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Go to gotanycows.com and use the subscribe section at the bottom of the page to join our mailing list. Once you do that, you'll get an email with the earliest access to the best bid prices on our next auction, which will close on November 19th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Looking back at that feeding period, so if you have an animal that enters the feedlot heavier, does that change how you manage them at all? So I guess looking at a calf that comes in at 650 versus if you had one come in heavier, or even having one come in lighter. Is 650, I know that's the preferred or the target, maybe point of entry. What do you do with a lighter or heavier? I guess how do you adjust the length of your feeding period or the composition of your feeding period, or do you adjust the end target by any way? What adjustments do you make when we're off that 650 mark on the day they come in?
Yeah, great question. We just use 650 because that's the average.
Sure.
The running average. But we'll get them from anywhere 800 to 500.
Sure.
And the biggest thing we do is we adjust how long they get the grow ration.
Yeah, you bet.
So the bigger they are, the less grow ration or starter ration they get. Might not get it for just a tiny bit, just get them warmed up to the feedlot. And the smaller they are, we might take them to grass. Like this year we took quite a bit to wheat. And we had them on wheat till they weighed 650, almost 700. Gotcha. So what we have to do at Heartbrand is we have to kill cattle every week. Right. So it's very unique about most cattle ranchers or cattle producers. They kill their cattle when they're ready. Right. They go into the big supply and then the feedlot, the big packers, they figure it out some kind of way. Yeah. But we have to kill cattle literally every week. So we have to take some of them and speed them up, push them just a little bit more. And at the specific times of year when we got a whole lot of cattle coming in, we'll take the ones that we think can handle it, and we'll just feed them a grow ration longer or leave them out on grass longer to try and get as many that we can every week close to that 1,500. And we don't get it right all the time. Sometimes we'll have cattle on inventory that, if we were just shipping, we would be shipping, 1,000 head a week. But we know that we got to spread these cattle out to get 400 a week.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if they come in heavier, do you trim your days on feed or do you still go a full 300?
We'll trim the days on feed.
Trim the days on feed at that point. So if you get one that comes in as an 8 weight or something like that, what would you anticipate as far as number of days it'd take to get them to 15?
It might be 250.
250. Okay, sure. And you just go right to a finish ration in that kind of a setting.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And like I said, a lot of I spend all day every day, even behind the cattle. A lot of what I'm doing is like at the petri dish level, And so it's educational, informative for me, and I think for a lot of other people to kind of grasp the bridge between the calf maybe leaving a ranch and the day the steak arrives on the plate. So when it comes time to merchandise all of that finished product and all of that finished beef that you're selling, what have you found, I guess, be some of the keys to keep product moved or to move ground beef? And I guess even, and I would tie this into, apologize, I'm kind of making it an extended question here, but even kind of, I guess, the cooking of Akaushi beef is a little different. And I think you guys have done a wonderful job in educating people. Honestly, our Sunday roast is your Sunday roast. I think you and or your wife or somebody put up a video at some point or a recipe at some point. That's our Sunday roast recipe now, and we do that with Akaushi beef. And I think you guys have done a really nice job educating people there. But walk us through, I guess, the sales process, but that educational component, I guess, of helping people properly prepare this beef and understand that maybe it does cook a little different from a conventional beef product.
Yeah, we think it cooks just a little quicker.
Yeah.
So especially on a steak, just be mindful of that. It might cook, and a little bit, it's like 10%, right?
Sure.
But the difference between the best beef eating experience possible and good beef eating experience possible is 10%.
Sure.
So I mean, yeah. So the way I tell people most of the time to cook it is try and let it get to close to room temperature. So if that means thaw it out early, start thawing it early. But take it out of the refrigerator, hopefully already thawed. If you need to thaw it in the refrigerator for 2 days on a cake pan or something, just in case it has a little extra purge or something comes out of the package. And then take it out of the refrigerator about 2 hours before you want to cook it. And we're not ever going to get to room temperature, but we just don't want it to be 32, right? If we can get somewhere in the middle at close to 50 degrees when we're cooking it.
Right.
And I keep my seasoning pretty simple. So depending on how I'm cooking, if I cook inside or outside, but I'll hit it with a little olive oil, just a light coat, or rub a little olive oil on it. Then salt, pepper, garlic. I use our Heartbrand seasoning, but it's essentially what it is: salt, pepper, garlic. But whatever fits your seasoning taste.
Sure.
And then I will preheat my oven to 425 degrees, and then I'll have a heavy skillet on the stove top, and I get that hot. And I put some oil in it. I use Wagyu tallow, because it has an extremely high smoke point. But if you don't have Wagyu tallow, use the oil with the next highest smoke point. So then avocado oil, and if you have to use olive oil, use olive oil, but it'll probably smoke. Just be ready to have the exhaust fan on. And I've had the fire department come once before when I lived in the city. So we have our steak seasoned. We have our oven at 425 preheated, and we have our heavy duty, I use a cast iron, but a heavy duty skillet. Ripping. I have mine on high, especially if I have Wagyu tallow, because it'll handle it. So take the seasoned steak, put it about 1.5 minutes on each side of that cast iron, and then we go from that cast iron. I'll leave it in the cast iron, but if you don't have cast iron, you just put it on a cake pan or something like that in the oven at 425. So it depends on the thickness of the cut to how long you cook it. But most of the time, a 14-ounce strip, 1.25 inches, is going to take about another 6 minutes. But the most important thing you do is have a thermometer, a quick thermometer that tells you. I use a thermopen to see what that internal temperature is, and I like to pull it out at about 132, something like that. So it's going to keep cooking. My target temperature is about 135, 138 is what I feel is ideal. I do think Akaushi needs to be cooked past medium rare. I think that fat needs the heat, and I think it needs that heat to break it apart a little bit more than what people like a rare steak. I have found very few people who would prefer them rare than they would medium rare to medium. They just perform and eat better there because that extra fat needs to be warmed up. A filet might be the difference, but on a strip and a rib, I feel very strongly about that 135, 138 mark. So put them in the oven, leave them in there, whatever time it is, but keep track of what you do. So if you come to my house, you open up my cupboard above the oven, it has handwritten times of how long. Because just because my oven says 425 doesn't mean it's 425. Your oven doesn't mean it's 425. But if you know I did 6 minutes and 6 minutes wasn't enough, well, then do 7 minutes in your oven. And whatever temperature that is, when you type in 425, it should be very consistent every single time. So once you get that amount of time in your oven, it should be pretty close to right every time. But I always thermopen it. Use that thermometer to check it. So we're pulling it out at like 132, somewhere right in there. We're letting it rest, and it's gaining temperature to 135, 138. And then, just get your veggies and get your plates ready and have fun.
You bet, absolutely.
But pretty simple process.
Yeah, you bet. I'll give you 3 final questions here, and I'll put them back to back because otherwise I'll forget them. But then I'll let you get back to. I know you got a million things rolling. You're running a company and a convention all at the same time, so really appreciate your time here, Jordan. But the 3 things I would ask would be: 1, in all of these different components you're managing, all the way from genetics to live cattle to feedlot cattle to kill cattle to distribution of the final product. What are, one, I guess, your favorite part of that whole process? Two, what's the most challenging part, or maybe the part that's hardest for you in your work and in your role as president of Heartbrand Beef? And then three, just any closing thoughts that you would add for anybody that's new to Akaushi, somebody that's just coming to convention for the first time, just getting around these cattle, getting a feel for them, getting started. Any thoughts for those people?
Yeah, no doubt the favorite thing is having somebody try Akaushi for the first time and then seeing their reaction when they try that cut of beef. It just never gets old.
Yeah.
And it's always wow. They just try it. They get that flavor. They get that tenderness, that Akaushi flavor that just bursts in their mouth. It's such a joy.
Yeah.
And I get to do that so often with people who come to the ranch for the first time, who are, ranchers but still like steaks, with chefs, like the most critically acclaimed chefs. Like the Restaurant 100, World Best Restaurant 100 just came out. And I don't remember how many in the US, somewhere like 20 or something like that. And like 5 of those restaurants serve Akaushi beef.
Love that.
So to see that level of chef try Akaushi for the first time is just amazing to me. So just getting people Akaushi beef is the most fun thing I do.
Yeah, you bet.
The most challenging thing we do is manage cash flow.
Sure,
absolutely. I mean, we're in a super slow cash turn environment with the commodity being high right now, with the need of cattle, getting those, it's one of the most challenging things we do. And I think that's the most challenging thing that most agricultural people have to do.
Absolutely. It's so slow and so much risk from point A to point B. Yeah.
Is managing cash flow. And secondarily behind that is managing our product mix.
Sure.
Is just making sure, because we're short on something and we're long on something every week. And it's really tough to call your customer and say, hey, I can't get you all the tenderloins you need, but can you take some extra top plates?
Right. Yep.
That can be pretty tough to do sometimes because nobody ever wants to be shorted.
Sure. Right.
Never have I found anybody, but I do find some people who want to take extra.
Right.
So just managing that is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Both of those two things are what we spend a lot of time trying to get right. And we're fortunate that we've been in agriculture for a really long time. So we have a lot of fixed assets that we're able to have that the family before me has put so much work and effort to, and I get to use those. But we're trying to grow at such a big amount that it still takes so much additional capital to operate.
Right.
And I think for another conversation another day, I think that's what's the hardest thing for keeping agriculture alive in our industry today.
Oh, absolutely. It's a tremendous amount of capital. Amount of capital tied up. And then just a lot of it. It's a lot easier to say, hey, we're going to take a whole pile of capital, sit it somewhere that requires no management. It's going to generate a really, really basic, simple, easy, predictable yield versus saying, hey, we're going to tie up an enormous amount of capital in living animals that break fences and that gain at different rates and that this chunk sells, but that chunk doesn't. And it's not an easy thing to do what we do.
So I don't think we're unique in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what is difficult on every agricultural company who's trying to grow.
I agree with that.
What was your third question?
I was just going to ask for your new people, anybody that's just entering the breed for the first time and maybe just getting a feel for it. And quite often, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are going to be both new to cattle and or new to Akaushi. And they're kind of just putting a herd of cattle together. They're learning the cattle themselves. They're learning the Akaushi breed. And maybe some of them are here at the convention for the first time, right here where you and I are sitting today. What would you say to those people as far as any thoughts or ideas or words of encouragement or things you'd say to them?
I think the biggest thing is the Akaushi cattle perform.
Yeah.
We've seen it since '98, been directly involved with it since 2006. If you get them the right energy in their ration and you give them the time to grow and to gain, the Akaushi cattle perform.
Yeah.
And they'll perform at whatever level you want them to perform at.
Yeah.
If you want them to perform on a grass-fed ration, they're going to marble better than the traditional cattle on that grass-fed ration.
Yeah.
If you want to do something similar to what Heartbrand does and kind of go in between what really good U.S. beef is and what Japanese beef is, but where a customer can still get a 14-ounce steak and eat a full 14-ounce steak, they can perform at that.
Yep.
And we even have some people that want to feed them longer, 400 days. They can perform at that. That the Akaushi cattle do whatever you need them to do.
You bet.
They're very fertile. They've got great longevity.
Yep.
And then we've been able to work with these cattle for 20 years. And we've just been blown away with what these cattle can continue to do. And I'm just excited for all the other people that get a chance to work with them and get to see the Akaushi firsthand.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I love what you mentioned as far as, your favorite thing is seeing people try this beef and to have beef that is this great coming from cows that are this good, because I'm coming from the cow end where we're talking about things like fertility, longevity, how the animals are to manage. But when you can sell a finished product like what you sell all day, every day at Heartbrand, coming from a cow that is that good, that for me is what sets Akaushi apart. To have cattle this good, producing beef that exceptional, I mean, it's just a wonderful thing. And I'm so appreciative of the work that Heartbrand has done in building out that market. That's not an easy thing to do, to come in with a new breed and kind of, it's a foreign product to people, whether you're introducing them to the beef for the first time or the cattle for the first time. It's not a small task. And I appreciate the work you guys have put in for the amount of time you have to kind of set the stage for what I really feel like is a breed and an association that has a tremendous amount of momentum at this point in time, and appreciate your work there, and appreciate you taking the time to talk about that with me, Jordan, and educate folks. And so grateful for your time today.
Thanks for having me in.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Got Any Cows podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and visit us anytime at gotanycows.com.